Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see you all here. There are, I would say, a bit more people than usual on these meetups. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. And my name is Sergey, and I will present the first talk, which is ChatGPT Driven Development. I couldn't come up with better joke. But I will try my best. What is it about? That's a story how I tried to create an iOS app without being a mobile developer at all, or not knowing anything about mobile development, Swift UI. I know a couple of fancy words, and I've been on meetups for quite a while, but I'm not a developer. So why? That's first reason, hype and buzz. Back in late 2022, when all the hype about new generative models come up, like DALL-E, I believe was the first, Midjourney, ChatGPT, and like AI's taking over. Now we can generate videos, photos, text, everything. So almost all art going to the machine, and we assume that machines will be doing boring jobs like robots assembling everything. So based on it, I had a question: are we doomed? Is my job secure? I'm partially a developer, and now everyone says that ChatGPT and Copilot writing code, they are writing code much better than the vast majority of human developers if you're asking right questions. So I was curious, can it replace someone who knows how to write the code with some model which just answering the questions? And the third reason, come on, it's shiny. Everyone likes technology, especially a new one. Try it, cutting edge. What can we do? So, and I had a reason behind it. I wanted a bit of personal app for strange case when it's a merge of Pomodoro tracking with time tracking. When you have a timer while you're doing something, and after all your timers gone, you can separate, okay, I was doing something for that time, something else for that time. I tried several apps. They were working more or less okay. Some of them asking for my money, and I understand why, because some people put effort into it, but all of them had a catastrophic disadvantage. They were not written by me. And as all developers know, you need to fix something and write by yourself. And here I want to give you a little warning that the following presentation features stunts performed by either professionals or under professional supervision. And I would like to suggest that no one attempt to recreate or reenact any action for this activity or activities from this presentation without professional supervision. What does it mean? Basically, I was playing dumb as long as I could. However, I'm in IT more than 15 years. I have various experience. I do understand what is programming. I do understand good code, bad code. Even if I don't know particular tricks for iOS, I can recognize some good and bad behaviors. So what I will be covering today, there are three major sections. The first one is general understanding of generative AI. What is ChatGPT, how it works, what is inside this technology, like what is context, what the prompts are, what the difference, how we can create them, why we need to create them. Does it make any difference what you're writing to the chat prompt? And the third one, the good, the bad, the ugly, that the portion about writing the app with ChatGPT and that the whole meat of this talk. So, did anyone use ChatGPT before? The vast majority of you. Okay, that's great. Who know how it works? Better. So, in general, ChatGPT is a conversational model, AI. That's questionable. I wouldn't call it AI, and I will explain it later. So, this model is trained on diverse data sets, basically almost on the whole publicly available internet, like petabytes and petabytes of data. That's a model which created to recognize natural language and process this natural language and give you responses, sorry, as human understandable language. Behind the scene, ChatGPT is built on large language models, and we can split it to a couple of pieces. The first one is language model, and language model is a model which, based on probability, can predict what will be next syllable, letter, or word based on the training data set. So you put a book to a model, it reads the book, and based on some predictions can say if you write hell, most likely it will be hell with double L or hello. It has some weights. So why it's big? Large language models became large when you put inside not one book but the whole internet. So basically, when you think about it, ChatGPT is old-fashioned T9 technology from our old phones with just buttons when you type something and it predicts what the word will be. This is why I can say that ChatGPT not really AI, it's not really intelligent, it's just super good on prediction because it knows almost everything, but it doesn't understand what exactly it says, writes, or doing. It's just very fancy prediction. And because it's prediction, you given it a prompt, so something as a starting point. And based on your prompt, you are getting response from the model. And prompt engineering, which you might heard of, is a fancy term for specifying that's a text which I put in a text box and sending as a request to the internet. But in this particular case, it will be AI model, ChatGPT model, or maybe your homegrown lab with something. Why prompt engineering is important? It's important because that's the model of predictions. Based on what you ask, you are getting the answer. If you want to get the right answer, you need to put the right question. So when you're questioning something, you want to put in your question as much information as you want to make it context rich, so the model knows what to answer. Oh, for example, if I'm asking create me a mobile app, it doesn't know what the mobile app is. It Android, Cardova, Symbian, or something else. If you are saying I'm experienced iOS developer with expertise in blah blah blah, and create for me please app using that and that technology, so your answer will be much more closer to reality you want to see. So basically that explains how to write prompts. Try to be clear on what you want. try to give as much context as you can. If you want to receive the answer with particular technology, ask about particular technology. And constantly evaluate what you are getting. Like, write the query. Is it the right one? Not. You can edit something or remove something from the query. And that's an example of different prompts and how ChatGPT handling them differently. So the first prompt was, explain me what is ChatGPT if I am 12, or like I am 12. And the second one, explain it to me as I am solution architect. And the answer is drastically different. The second one involves information how you can apply ChatGPT in technologies like use for Q&A, right, solution designs, and so on. Moving to the context. So context is something like a RAM for the model. When you are communicating with AI, it has very limited amount of memory. For example, ChatGPT with the GPT-4 under the bonnet, it has 4096 tokens. And what is a token? It's not a letter. It might be the whole word, or one letter, or syllable, or collocation of some symbols. To be honest, I cannot explain you what is a token, because for every text the token will be different, and there are special websites even on OpenAI where you put the text and it splits to particular tokens, and you may see that it's not even chunks, it's quite different ones. So why I'm talking about context and why it's important? Because from my perspective, at the current age of technology, the context is a main limitation of how good the models are and how good your communication. Your context is your request and your response. So you cannot put the whole application at the moment to ChatGPT and say, write me a function which does that. There is not enough space. And time to time, you might be already came across a situation when you're asking something and ChatGPT answering and stopping in the middle of the sentence. That means it ran out of the context. So you may rephrase the question or say, please continue from previous point, and so on. So if it's the main limitation, how we can manage it? I would suggest to use only relevant information or context to particular tasks. So if you are asking about a particular function which you want to refactor, you don't need to give the whole program to the ChatGPT. You can just give a piece of code and ask, explain me that, or refactor it. The second hint is use batch processing or step by step. So if you're asking about something big, like write the application, it cannot write the whole application in one go. You need to ask, okay, let's write this screen or this particular part of the screen, this function, and so on. State management in ChatGPT, when we are talking about the web view, it's already kind of implemented because your context is your request and response, but overall it checks somehow the all previous history, doing some summary, so it keeps general understanding what's going on. So you can ask, like, explain me previous statement, so it goes to previous statement because it's somewhere behind the scene. Or you can use just your favorite prompts for ChatGPT, like write me a function and assume that you are such developer using such technologies, and so on. So, play dumb, as long as you can. I have no idea what I was doing. Even I had an idea that I want to have an application with several screens. These screens should be looking like that. To be honest, I had no idea where to start. Like, okay, go to Xcode, create new project, you have your hello world. What's next? Here I have about like 53 pages of PDF with different text, code snippets, screenshots, and so on. So I tried to boil it to the essence and take just the most important bits and pieces with some examples of good stuff, bad stuff, and horrible stuff. So move on. I'm not sure is it readable from the site or not. That was my very first prompt to ChatGPT when I was starting the application. So I tried to create a scene, give general description of the situation, and set some expectations. So I said that I want ChatGPT to act as experienced iOS developer, use Swift programming language. Swift UI is a framework, because who wants UI kit for playing with ChatGPT? It's iOS application for iPhones. I ask guide me with step-by-step instructions, so it shouldn't try to create everything all at once and blow up. Also, I gave general description like what is user flow, like open application, choose tasks, set timer, and so on. I also specified that I already have Xcode installed and running on my Mac, so it shouldn't be my first step to install Xcode. And the first answer from ChatGPT was quite generic, with just a couple of snippets. So it was suggesting quite abstract flows, like set up the project, define your model, create user interface. You may use this particular how you call it, elements, like picker, text field, stepper, implement the timer, if I want the timer implemented. As a storage, it suggested to use user defaults and serialize the data as JSON strings, and suggested to use notifications. So from this point, I know what to do, right? So just add a couple of more lines of code to these two snippets and it will be working app.
Ship it.
Yeah, straight to production. So I said I'm not so smart, and could you go with like more detailed instructions, step by step, what I need to do? And straight away it reducted the task. So first code snippet, it extended it with some additional information. It gives description what it's for. And as I'm presenting for experienced iOS developers, can anyone spot something odd about this code?
It's quite difficult to see from here.
Yeah,
I should have brought my glasses.
So I just copy-paste this code to Xcode, and Xcode gave me some warnings about the code. And it's like, okay, good start. So the first second snippet I have, it already gives a bit of warnings. And here, the first lesson. If you not really keen on something what you're getting from the model, you can ask it to fix it. And comparing to some fellow developers, it's open to critic. So it says, okay, sure, that's the reason why there is a warning. I can fix it easily for you. Just replace your code with something else. Another thing which I want to demonstrate here, I specified that I didn't like the class name, and I renamed it and gave different class name. So when ChatGPT updated the code, it already used a new class name, so it understood the context, even if it was not request and response. Somehow behind the scene, it goes up and see what's going on. So I would say there are a couple of contexts. One is request response, which is 4000, and the second one I call it global context. It how deep in the history ChatGPT can go and check and boil to the essence to pass it back to the mothership to check what's going on there. So after a couple of things, that was my app. Good enough like for Hello World and start, but once again I wanted to criticize it and say maybe it's not really good user experience. If you want to start the timer, maybe the button should be on the bottom and so on. So I describe it like, yay, that's a good start, great start, but can we reorganize? And it says, yeah, absolutely. So, and it suggests replacing some of the elements on the screen and so on, giving you the code. And the problem is, doesn't matter how good you are, the ChatGPT is worse. So it was quite step-by-step iterative process, like asking something, put to Xcode, check how it works, go back, find the bug. I would say because I was playing dumb and I was not providing detailed user stories how the application should behave and what happens when you tap the button and so on. ChatGPT was giving me quite generic code, which was bug prone. So I was testing it, changing it, testing it, changing it. But every time ChatGPT was like, I fix it, I fix it, I fix it. And like to the point with the UI, it went more or less smooth. So I was touching the ground, understanding how it's going. So we found the common language. Kind of, I did it, checked it, did it, checked it, and so on. And at some point of time, when I already had some UI, I decided, okay, that's time to add some business logic, because just running the timer is not really what I want. I have a timer on the watch. So adding functionality to save information about these sessions. So later on I can grab them, keep some statistics and so on. And here it was more than 4 hours going back and forth with ChatGPT when I asked about more complicated stuff, like not just writing UI on general description, but adding some logic. I think it's starting like behave oddly, or how I say, hallucinating, meaning it come up with something which was not mentioned before or I didn't ask for. So it created something called session manager. I'm not sure, maybe it's a common thing, create managers. I am one. So in this code, it was first time when ChatGPT produced the code which didn't compile. So the second thing, or the second lesson, ChatGPT is not keeping the track of everything what it said before, and it knows something, but it's tend to forget it because it's not important and context is really limited. For example, here, it introduced something called start time, and there was no such variable, so code didn't compile. Also, start time was parameter start date, so it's not consistent. And it means you can rely on ChatGPT. It writes the code. In the vast majority of time, it will work. However, you have to assess what it writes. It may be inconsistent, giving bad naming, might be even some spelling mistake, but most likely it will be my mistakes, not its mistakes. So what to do when you kind of stuck? So it gives you the code and you have no idea what to do next, because it gives you like small code snippets how each function works. So you may ask, okay, I didn't get it. Give me the whole class, the whole code, and it generates it once again. So you have better context, and it may introduce the variables which were not introduced, and vice versa. If you're having the problem with the code, you can give the whole code you have and say, fix it. That's the problem. And the vast majority of the time, it works like a charm. And as you may imagine, I don't have like the whole time of the world to build an app in one go. So I spent a while, and several days later I came back to the app, and I do remember that it's already behaved kind of strange. I'm purposely use the same chat dialog. So it's one go, I'm not starting a new one, I'm not cleaning the context, but I'm trying to use human language to clean the context, saying like, I want you to keep general understanding of application above without specific implementation. So I assume it should know that I'm doing something about timers with some screens, but I didn't want it to give everything back to the context. And from my perspective, it did work. So you can try to use this hint if you stuck on some development, like start from the scratch, forget everything, or just start a new dialogue with your model. So I tried to keep playing dumb for as long as I could. I tried to not give it particular technology or elements which it should use for UI. For example, here I was asking about tab bar, which looks like something on Twitter with icons which I can touch, and it just switching the screens or views. So I try to understand, is it smart enough to work for people who are not really developers and they know what they want to see on the screen and just describing it. And basically it's good enough. It says, oh, that sounds like a tab view. I spent a while, I added a tab view to the app. And here it suggested how to reorganize the code. But even though it knew that I have something which is called like content view, it didn't pay attention that it has some dependency which should be injected to the application. And it was a point where I like almost gave up to play dumb because it like, took more and more time. So I asked him, oh, like maybe you forgot something to inject. Shall I like put some parameters? And it says, yeah, sure, that will help with your problem for sure. On the side note, you still can ask super generic question for help with Xcode, for example, like how to add some assets to the project. I'm new, I have no idea. So it gives you quite detailed instructions, step by step, where to click, what to do. In the vast majority of time, it does it well, except the moments with the more recent changes in UI of Xcode. And here I want to say, oh guys, Xcode. I was doing it for, I don't know, 5-6 hours, and it crashed like 3 times already. But at this point, it's like, that's tough. I have no idea how you're like surviving with it. But who am I to judge? You don't have anything else.
Ouch.
Yeah. So at some point I decided, okay, that's a time for new screen, and I will try to be more precise what exactly I want to see on the screen, and see can it build the whole screen based on the description, like something should be on top, something following should be an icon, this icon should look like that. And I have no idea, maybe it's because of my initial instruction, keep it step by step, but ChatGPT gave me quite generic view with just a couple of elements, despite that it described everything. Like, yeah, you should have these elements, and they will be structured in this way, but you have code just for the first one. Enjoy. So once again, going step by step, building the screen, asking remove white spaces or change the colors. So going from the first text description to that point, it took about 5 iterations back and forth. I believe any more or less experienced Swift UI developer will do it like in 5-7 minutes, I'm not sure. Nothing like super fancy here. As I understood, it's really hard to describe with words without particular code what exactly you want to see. Like I want to see a month which is bold on the top of the screen with the icon. Yeah, you have it. Not big enough, like your problem. Not enough spacing, your problem. So I continue to work with it, and unfortunately, the more you work in particular chat, the shorter your context became. So initially I could spend almost 4 hours without any problem with model doing like ridiculous things. And here it was like 2 hours, after that it's 1 hour, so I had to say forget everything more often and more often. It helped though. And here I would say it goes to things which are bad. So the more complex things you ask it to do, worse it does it like from the scratch. Another thing is, it even if it wrote everything in 1 question or 2 above, it doesn't take it into consideration. And here in particular, it was creating view model and putting some functionality in view model for fetching sessions, but in the query above it created a session manager for like similar purpose. And you're saying like, okay, you like already spreading the knowledge between couple of components. So that's the point when you have to be a developer to understand, is it good architecture or not really, where you need to put it. So you can ask a question, and I had both experience. One where I didn't understand what exactly the model was doing, and it said, no, you are wrong, it has to be here because that, and that. And in this particular scenario, it says, oh yeah, like makes sense if you want to combine all the functionality about sessions and you already have session manager, do it. And going deeper to the rabbit hole, you don't know what you don't know. Meaning, for me, as not real iOS developer, I don't know what the elements and how they may function. So if I'm given a description, it implements something like looks more or less okay, and I say okay, it looks good, but it has some background for this list. I'm not sure is it visible or not on the screen. So I ask, can you remove the background? And it says, yeah, sure, but it will be completely different element. And it's like, is it true? Not true? I don't know. So I spent a while trying to create this list of elements, and it was hard. Given description of UI, it's not giving you the code you want, and you cannot adjust it without the knowledge how it should be. To reiterate, like, okay, I changed this part and give it to ChatGPT to readjust it. Here, that's kind of duplication, but still, when you have some code which you want to polish, it's a good idea to give the whole code snippet to the ChatGPT so it can refactor, readjust, and change something. And at some point of time, yeah, I received the view as I wanted, and I said, okay, cool, now I need to delete it. And I know that in iOS there is a fancy thing like swipe from right to left, and there is a button to delete it, and I think it's kind of built-in functionality. It's almost everywhere, right? Not right. If you don't know where this functionality, you don't know that it should be listed or whatever, so you need to re-implement it, and you try to describe it to ChatGPT. It writes the code, but it looks ugly, and you don't know why. So that's where you need a developer. Yep.
A little bit earlier, you said that you have to tell ChatGPT to forget everything.
Mm.
Do you mean in this case literally just opening up a new chat with new context, or like in your previous slide when you said start from the beginning?
I always was using the same chat, so it's the whole history above. I was using only prompts saying forget everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that essentially clears the token, the localized token count you were saying?
I assume to some degree. I cannot prove or disprove it because implementation ChatGPT from OpenAI as a product which you I using on the web, it's drastically different from ChatGPT which you are getting as API from Microsoft. So in Microsoft APIs, when you just consuming the same ChatGPT models, you need to maintain all this chat history by yourself and boil the essence from the previous dialogue. And here they are doing it somehow by yourself. So when you're using API and saying use the previous response, it doesn't know what is previous response. Here it does know. So it's about implementation. And does it answer your question? And here that's where the things going ugly. So unfortunately, ChatGPT is trained by the data which limited to September 2021, and for mobile development it's like previous century. Like for 2 years it's completely different technology now. What you can do, you can use something like Bing, which is using ChatGPT model behind the curtains, but it enriched it with the internet responses. So the first screen which I wanted to create was aggregation of statistics. Like we already have some data in core data, so I asked ChatGPT like what do we have for graphics, like graphs and so on, and it says some third-party libraries which I didn't want to go for. And from experience as developer, I know that there is a new functionality in iOS 16, I think, when you can build the graphs from embedded. Yeah, so what to do? Ask Bing how to create this graph. So Bing did it more or less okay. It give me example how to use the graphs. It worked and so on. So I had the graph, but after that I need to pull the data from core data, and from my backend experience, it's aggregation query to core data, which is SQLite underneath. So I suppose it should be some aggregation query, and you just get in the dictionary key value, and it build the graph. I spent almost an hour talking to ChatGPT and Bing trying to build this aggregation query for core data. I couldn't. It's not only didn't give me the right result, it was not giving me compiling code. And at this point I thought, okay, that's it. Like application ends here without aggregation. And when I was talking to Bing saying like, come on, your code doesn't work, it just says, sorry, I cannot do it. Go away. Don't ask me anymore. Like passive aggressive. It's okay. We know it from work. It happens.
Contact Apple or core data developers directly. Which planet are they on?
Luckily enough, I had some access to BART as well from early stages. I tried it in the beginning when it just arrived, and it was complete disaster comparing with Bing and ChatGPT. So I had no idea, but give it a try, and it gave me the code which worked. It was not aggregation query, it was just pulling the whole data from core data and processing it on the device, and it worked. So I decided, okay, like, who am I to argue with artificial intelligence? So maybe they will remember me. It's not good for Terminators. So overall, that's basically the whole experience of me writing the app with no knowledge about iOS. That was kind of the final result with 3 screens, the timer itself, some calendar where I could see the sessions, delete the sessions, and a bit of more generic graphs about statistics. So what I learned from this journey. Yes, you can build an iOS app from the ground up with ChatGPT. That's great. However, there are several asterisks and fine print on the bottom. Context size is a problem now. So ChatGPT on web, it's 4,000 tokens. It's good enough for some processing, but not good enough for building the whole app. Even if you're going to API directly and your context will be 32,000 of tokens, I doubt that you can put all the application in memory of this context and do something with it. The second one, creation of UI elements, it's challenging. You describe it as detailed as you want, but the thing just writes as a thing to write. So you need to readjust. Architecture decisions are on you. So it writes the code snippet by snippet, not application in mind. So you are a responsible person for keeping everything nice and tidy, putting everything to right places. You can assess your architecture decisions with the ChatGPT and it can say, is it good or not, but it won't write the whole code in the right direction. You need to find workarounds for modern techniques like Bing, ChatGPT, if it has again plugins for web, but most likely they remove it just for people to use Bing, or BART, getting better and better. And when you are writing an application without experience, you don't know what exactly you don't know. So you might miss some crucial parts of knowledge, like use this particular element here because I know that it's supported, or come up with a new one because functionality won't be exactly as you want. Okay, questions?
Good luck debugging Cigarabit with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Did you submit it to the App Store?
Yeah, this is my question also.
Not yet. I created a privacy policy for the application, and when I was starting testing it on different devices, I noticed that the layout is completely broken. So that's.
In a follow-up, do you think you will use ChatGPT to help with the iteration of that submission process?
Why not? Finish it to the end. Yeah.
I'd like to know how that goes. Good.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, I guess a couple of things. Like, you saying you have to play dumb, but I think you've got the curse of knowledge, like you are a developer and a back-end developer, so you're saying things like aggregate query, and you got really stuck on this, and I think that's because you're, aggregate query, that's not even a thing that, I guess core data is ORM, so the fact that it's built on like SQLite and an actual database is irrelevant. Like it could be, like you know what I mean, to dig through that abstraction. So like the final answer that you got, which was like, oh, just pull the whole thing, do it in memory, whatever structure. I guess like maybe if you didn't say aggregate, you would get there quicker.
Good question. To be honest, I don't remember. Did I specify aggregation as a term or not?
Yeah, like I feel like just saying what you wanted with the data would have been like, and being really dumb about it,
Yeah.
might have got you there quicker. But the main question I was to ask, do you pay for GPT?
Yeah. I was using GPT for.
GPT-4, yeah, because like I'm not paying for it, and I just use the app. It's GPT 3.5. And, like you can ask it like 5 things, and it's like, sorry, out of time for this hour or whatever. So I'm assuming for this like long thread that you had, you've got some kind of paid.
Yeah, I have paid subscription.
How much does that cost?
20 USD plus tax, which combined about 39 NZD at the moment
Per month.
per month.
Yeah.
It's quite expensive.
But without that, you wouldn't have been able to do this basically, right?
Most likely I will, but it will be much longer.
Like you get rate limited, or you can't get past 5 questions without it solving your.
So you need to wait. Yeah.
Okay.
Mine's also stupider.
It's faster. Depends on the field you're asking about. It might be dumber, maybe not. For development, from everything what I heard from podcasts and other people, GPT-4 much better than 3.5.
Yeah, there's a significant price difference there, though. Like you can get a lot more out of 3.5 for your dollars than you can for. So
0 and 40.
Sometimes
$0.
a mixed approach.
To be honest, I was testing these models from closed beta, and it was much smarter, even 3.5 than GPT-4 now. They reduced whatever they reduced drastically. Like previously, I could ask quite generic things, saying like, write me a function which brings the data from the database using this framework, and it gives you like blown up snippet with the proper name and functions and additional checks and so on and validations. And now, okay, that's kind of a couple of lines for you should be enough. Go.
That's why prompt engineering is even more important now than it used to be, perhaps.
Yeah, I would say so.
You kind of have to work against whatever filters they've put on top.
But I think we kind of saw like a decent example of in order to be a prompt engineer, you actually need to understand the matter. Otherwise, you're going to struggle regardless.
Okay.
When would you not use ChatGPT when you're coding? I know many companies worry about privacy and so on. What
Yeah,
do you consider is when it's you consider it's dangerous or
Everything what can identify your company, clients, or personal data, that's no. At least you're like crazy and I can do it.
Everything else?
So I didn't mention it here, but in general, that's a prediction model. It's not artificial intelligence. If you are doing something about math, don't use it. It cannot calculate. It just predicts. So if there are enough examples on the internet that 2 + 2 is 5, not 4, it will be sure that it's 5.
Yeah, I think the question is how close or how far from the edges of the training data are you when you're getting the results, right? If you're in territory that's well covered by the training data,
Yeah.
then you're going to be fine probably. If you're right on the edges, then maybe not.
Yeah. So I think ChatGPT is a great tool for Java developers. Right? You.
Did you do any research on prompt engineering before this? Or like how do you get research?
Unintentional. I'm following the topic in general. So I seen some videos on the internet. I read some articles on the internet how people are doing stuff like on X Twitter. How people saying, okay, I'm running my business and that's what I was doing. That people who are saying, okay, I'm writing a unit test for my applications with this. By the way, for unit testing can be beneficial using ChatGPT if you're giving just a generic function and saying like, test it for me. It may come up with some interesting edge cases which you may not predict. Yeah.
At the end, how the code look like future-proof? How it can improve the feature or?
That's on you. Architecture is on you. So if you see that this code like so it won't be future-proof. Another thing, as previously mentioned, more data accumulated on the internet about particular topic, stronger the answers are. So if you are doing some generic programming, so most likely the code will be good for a long time with patterns, proper naming and so on. If you are trying to use it for most recent UI technologies, and this topic covered for last 6 months, like from June 2021. So
I bet it can be a decent hello world.
Yeah. Yep.
They just put out this, it's like a setting where essentially I think it's trying to cater to like, what is your pronoun and blah, blah, blah. But where it's like, do you want a context do you want ChatGPT to understand this context about basically everything you say? Like, for example, like, I work at this.
Yeah.
Do you think, or did you try that this is essentially like a third kind of context for tokenization, for tokens, where it's not, you're saying, let's say, for example, this is my code base, and then so it can reference that without you having to or use tokens.
I do use this configuration on my ChatGPT setup. So it says that I prefer straight to the point. I have experience with development. My technology stack is such and such. I'm the manager. If I'm asking to write an email to someone, be polite and accurate what they're saying. And this one, it doesn't go as a context. In API model, you have additional layer for. Unfortunately, I don't remember the term, but basically that goes with every query which you are sending to the API, but it didn't count against the context size. It doesn't reduce the tokens, but it takes into consideration as a setting.
Yeah, so that could be what I'm saying. Is like it could, if you wanted to essentially localize your use of ChatGPT in a specific case to that thing, you could load a bunch of shit in there.
No, it's limited.
Okay.
It's not so big.
Okay.
As far as I remember, it's about like 500 characters per field, and there are a couple of fields, so 1,000 characters.
Yeah, you'd still fit with them. You'd have to fit it in their context window. Like
Here's my
even-
repo.
Yeah, I mean, even, like the function calls and things you can do, right, that call and response model, all that needs to fit within the context window if it's going to be relevant. Your best bet is to, if you've got context outside of that, is to try and do some sort of summary or prompt compression with one of the lesser models or something like that to try and trim that down. But at some point you're going to get past that window. It's not going to have context forever, right? I think even the new ones, what are they talking, like 32K, 65K, something like that, right?
32.
Yeah,
For-
so that's the biggest, I don't know, not the biggest, it's certainly one of the big limitations in the models and the research at the moment, right, is pushing that context window out.
The problem with the context is it grows exponentially how expensive to process it. So it's not even like 8 times more expensive and time consuming it much more. So
Hey, thanks again. That was really awesome.
thank you.